Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pawel the Cat with a new and recurring co-host, Jordan. How are you, Jordan?
Good, ready to take over for Evan. Fix his mistakes.
Well, we've been looking for a replacement for Evan for a while, so this is good because I think you're going to bring in some really good insight and knowledge, especially about the WHL. I don't know about you, but I think you seem to have a bit more insight there, and I think you would change up Evan's top 15 if you could, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, we're going to get to it. We appreciate Jordan stepping in because it's been a busy week for Evan, and he's unable to make it tonight, but he should be back next week, ready to go. But remember, guys, we are here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, going live. We talk all things hockey. You can give us a follow on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, hockey_2, or Evan at REV. He'll still reply sometimes, although he may not always have the right answer, but we are always here. Now, we're going to get right into it, and make sure you guys leave a like and a comment. We appreciate hearing that from you. Jordan, it's been a wild week, and I'm sure I would love to get your thoughts on the game between the Oilers and the Canucks, because they go back at it again tomorrow, but there's been some penalties handed out. For Tyler Myers, his cross-check on Evan Bouchard, and for Connor McDavid, the best player in the game, I would say, that's me speaking, against Connor Garland, who kind of WWE wrestled him down to the ground. There was a bit of a kerfuffle. What do you think of the calls? Did the Department Player of Safety get this right? And what is to be made of this whole situation?
I'll break it down pretty easy. I don't think it's as much. I think the league is just doing what they feel after, but I think originally the refs need to make the right calls on the ice. So in my opinion, it's a hold. Like, he holds them two different ways, two different times, tosses them down, puts them in a headlock. I mean, as a ref, you have to call that. And I mean, the retaliation isn't great either. Like, McDavid should not be doing that, but it's heated. It's in the middle of the game. It's right at the end of the game, actually. But yeah, you can't do that. And then Myers follow-up on Bouchard, you definitely can't do that. Like, I know there's a lot of fans kind of arguing which one is worse, but they're both really bad. I don't know if there is a worse, especially if they give them both 3-game suspension. You know, like, you can't really go worse on that. I think in that play, like, I've talked to a lot of people about it, and, like, you know, me and you used to play hockey together. In that moment, I would have just dropped the gloves and thrown some punches. Maybe you get a 1 game, so it's not as bad. But, like, you even knew when that cross-check happened, it's going to be more than 1 game, especially how the league has gone lately with a lot of things. We'll get into it more, but around the league with just calls on the ice, it's not necessarily the league. The league is like the after effect, right? So that's my thought on it anyways.
I would agree with you. I think I knew as soon as McDavid cross-checked him, it was going to be a suspension for sure. You can't cross-check anybody in the face. I don't care what anyone argues. That is just heat of the moment, but you can't be hitting people in the face, right? That could be an automatic injury. The one good thing is that both Bouchard and Garland seemed fine. Now, it's been interesting on Twitter, on social media, people going back and forth, you know, celebrities and former players, current players stepping up. Pronger talked about how he liked what McDavid did. Crosby talked about, you know, and I'm, you know, not verbatim quoting him, but he said, you know, you don't go, or the 10 to 12 cross checks and slashes go unnoticed. And that's what gets to a star player, right? Does the NHL need to be better? Because in my mind, I think they do, but do they need to be better in protecting their stars?
Yeah. I mean, you could say as simple as that, really. It's not a new thing. Like, it's a thing that's been around for a long time. You know, you see it quite a bit. But then here's where they might get you. What is your definition of a star? Yes, McDavid is obviously the face of the NHL. But after that, when you get into the middle, what is your definition of a star? Is that guy that's the best guy on the team? Is he the 5th best guy on the team? Like, how do you define that, right? And I think that's kind of where they would debate it.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I think, you know, when you look at the end of the game, you know, Mario Lemieux, when he played, and I mean, he's long retired, so he's able to chime in. He talked about how it's a bit of a joke of the league. You know, I'm using very PG language. when he wasn't protected and the hacking and the slashing that occurred. And it was much more greasier and dirtier back in the 80s and even beforehand. So you definitely want to identify what is a star, but you want to protect all players. I think this is more of a loss for Edmonton, as was seen in the game yesterday versus Washington, than it was for Vancouver. Although again, they've been injured quite a bit. So Myers is playing top 4 minutes on D. He is taking up a lot of minutes. He's got over 1,000 games in the NHL. He's still very valuable, important to that club. So it'll be interesting to see. One final thought before we move on to a couple other things around both these teams. What do you do if you're the NHL or NHLPA and approach reffing? Because we all know Wes McCauley, a very well-known ref in the game, has been around for a while, usually gets Stanley Cup playoff final games to ref. He likes to banter during games and tell jokes. But really, I know that he has a love-hate relationship with some fan bases because they think that he sometimes misses calls and lets them play. What do the refs do? Do they need more accountability? Like, how do you approach that?
The refs, they just need to stay consistent on their calls. Here's a crazy take. I think you want to build the game. You have the Oilers, like last year's Stanley Cup, like most viewed in how many years, right? It's obvious, like, people want to see the best player in the game. And so you give them their 1-game suspension. So Myers misses a Buffalo game, McDavid misses the Washington game. And then you have a bloodbath on Thursday. Like, that is my thought on it. Because you could call it players policing the game, but it adds eyes to the game, because who isn't watching that game? Like, who does not want to miss that game, right? Like, that's my thought on it. As far as the refs, the refs, they just got to stay consistent. They got to make the right calls, which is, I know, sometimes really hard, especially how fast the game is. But you have video review, especially at the end of the game. Like, what to call on that. So, I didn't like the call with the refs missing the call on Garland or even McDavid, whatever that tussle was, regardless. Mm-hmm. You call it. And I get the whole possession, last minute of the game, like a few seconds left, but it went on for about 15 to 20 seconds. That's a long time in hockey. Lots can happen. So you really want to be able to manage the game. If you don't manage the game, it could get worse. And the worst part is that we are mid-January. We're only a few months away from the playoffs. What is that standard going to be? Because players base it on the standard that the refs set it on, right? They want to make sure that they're playing to the game, that their understanding is being set in front of them, right? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, a couple of other storylines out in both of these things is that JT Miller potentially was almost traded, according to Elliot Friedman, over the weekend to the Rangers. Now, there's been some other suitors that have come out since. Carolina Hurricanes, which is an intriguing one, along with the Devils, who would have to make cap room. Where do you see JT Miller going? Do you believe that he is gone officially and it's not repairable? And do you think it's one of those teams, or is some team that's obscure, like a Boston, perchance? I won't quite say which team for sure he'll go to. If I had to lean towards a team, I do think the Devils are more or less in now. So is Carolina. The Rangers, I don't think makes as much sense. Yeah, he did play there before, so he could go back there, but I just think it's more of a lateral move where, like, New Jersey and Carolina win now. They're doing well. They want to make that big splash, and that's so as far as trading, I think that's where he goes. As far as JT Miller as a person, I think when you have enough stories about you, there's got to be a little bit that's true. So maybe he's just not like the nicest guy in the locker room or whatever it might be. And sometimes you need that. Like, sometimes you need like a harsh leader. Because, this guy shows up in the playoffs, and every team wants a guy that shows up in the playoffs. And this guy, he's excellent on the draw. What was he, 18 for 23 against Edmonton the other night? Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
you want guys like that.
Yeah. Now, your interesting prediction with the Devils, because they'd have to make the money work in terms of moving things. And I know that Prospect Simon Nemec has been in the AHL for a while, really hasn't cracked the lineup, but I mean, Devils are doing very well. They're going to make the playoffs this year, barring something really wild. But I know Vancouver really wants a center back. And one of the people that they were considering from Rangers was Zibanejad, who potentially could move his no movement clause, I believe it is. So it's possible he may come over. But who does New Jersey give up beyond Simon Nemec and a potential conditional first-round pick as the center? Because you're not getting rid of Hughes. You're not getting rid of Heischer. Is it Justin Dowling as your third-line center? Or is it something that like Curtis Lazar, who has played for Vancouver, if I recall? Like, who do you give up as a center? Or are they offering something completely different because they definitely need defensemen? And that's something Vancouver is really keen in on, especially Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin.
So that's why I say with the Rangers, with Zibanejad, it's more of a lateral move. It just doesn't make sense. They could give out players like you give Cheadle and Keandre Miller kind of package. It doesn't really make sense, though. You still have the problem with the Zibanejad being on your team at that point. And what if you make the trade and Zibanejad flourishes like he did when he first came over to the Rangers, but he does it in Vancouver, right? Like, you take that risk. So with New Jersey, you have a bit more. You have the Heischers and you have the Hughes, so you have that depth that you can make that move. I would think Lazar is a good one because I think he's a BC boy, actually. So that would make sense. I think you need someone with a little bit more cap. So maybe like a Palat or someone. I know Palat would be a good playoff guy, but so would Miller. So, and if you really had to compare the players and you're going for cap, then you make that room. Mercer, Nemec. I mean, they do have a decent amount of assets, but they only have so many assets, and it's what Vancouver wants as well, because Miller does have that no move. So it's also like, hey, how do we make this trade so it works for both sides?
And it's interesting because I think one of the problems is like, how do you get Elias Pettersson going? He has really struggled on and off. We knew last year when he was in the playoffs, he was a little bit non-visible, and people were a little bit questioning what had happened, and it turned out injury was a factor. I don't know if it's the only reason. So it was interesting to see what had happened, but he's got to get his game going because next to JT Miller, he's the highest paid forward up there, right? If he's not the most top paid forward. And now there's rumblings with Demko wanting out, but Demko himself needs to stay healthy. That's a whole other ball game. And I know Lankinen's price probably just went up given his value and what he's been able to do for that team and still keep them, from my understanding, they're still just outside of a wild card spot, battling it out with Calgary. So, there's still an opportunity here. There's still quite a bit of the season to go, at least, 40 games plus. There's definitely an opportunity for Vancouver, but they got to figure it out because there's been too much noise. Now, speaking of Edmonton, because we are kind of focusing on these two teams and we'll go to other teams afterwards, I wanted to get your thoughts on John Klingberg. He does sign for that 1.75. It's a little bit prorated given the fact that it's middle of the season. He's coming off hip surgery. He last played for Toronto. He had signed that a one-year deal with them, and it didn't really pan out, even though it was interesting why Toronto even went for him. But he is a good puck-moving defenseman when he's on his game. He had some good years in Dallas, along with Minnesota. People forget about that. But what do you expect of this signing and what he brings? And does he crack the power play too? Does he play on the third pairing? What take away Troy Stetcher? What's the plan here?
Kind of with these things, like used to be good or had some good years, it doesn't generally work out the way you want it to. Sometimes it's rare and it does work out. It's a perfect fit. And if you're an Oilers fan, that's kind of what you hope for, but it's not always the case. As far as who I think he's going to play with, I could see him with a Kulak. You need a two-way guy with him, maybe Nurse. I assume that's their approach to it, is they need to find a good puck mover to go along with Nurse. Nurse has been pretty solid defensively this season. He's actually looked pretty good. Still not worth the contract, but he's been really solid for the Oilers. So I think they're trying to find that good fit with him so they can get ready for the playoffs. And I think they took a chance. They took a gamble at a guy that's coming off of really serious injury and hoping he can skate. He can pass the puck down the ice. And I think if you had run into injury troubles in the playoffs, like say you had a Bouchard out, at least you have another guy that can run a power play. So I think it's Like it's a good gamble. It's a risky gamble for the Oilers because of the money. You're dipping into that LTIR. Now you have a little bit less to spend on someone else in the trade deadline. But I guess that's a risk you take, right?
100%. It was just interesting you mentioned both Kulak and or Nurse, because my understanding was that they were kind of playing together, even though they're both lefties. Just kind of having Kulak play on his offside, and it's been working fairly well given that the success that Ekholm and Bouchard have had, and it's just been kind of a rotating circle for the bottom pairing guys. Although sometimes they have gone 7, but it hasn't been as effective as it was when Woodcroft was in charge. So it's been interesting to see. Edmonton definitely just took a flyer on him, no risk. He is also working for another contract, right? I mean, he's young, he's 32, 33. You know, he wants to still play, be effective. And when you look at a team like a San Jose, like an Anaheim, who may need someone for cheap next year or for a 2-year contract, it'd be interesting to see if they can do anything. Now, I wanted to get to 2 other things. It was reported today that the Utah Hockey Club has had some issues with getting a legal patent for their name. I know it's been kind of rumored rumblings that it was Yeti, but apparently it's been denied because there's a confusion with a Yeti cooler brand. And I think the other names, Blizzard and Utah Venom, were also having similar things. Now, they had also Mammoths, Outlaw, or Outlaws. I can't remember if it was. Not the Star Wars game for all you gamer nerds, but yeah. So your thoughts on what does Utah do? Do they just continue to be the HC, or do they go off the board and have something completely different, or be the Utah Mormons and just be something fun like that?
It seems like a missed opportunity. Like, why wouldn't you want a branding partnership with Yeti? I mean, I'm not speaking for them or anything, but I mean, in their case, it's like, wow, we get I worked in retail for a long time. You get your brand out there. You have your brand name all over their arena, all over their jerseys. Fantastic. So that's great for them. And then in Utah's case, they get the name they wanted. So I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do that. I think it's tough no matter what. I think there's going to be a disagreement, whatever name they pick. I like Outlaws personally. I've said that from the beginning. Mammoth, I don't think really works, but if that's what they go with, that's what they go with. It's kind of, like they had a fan vote, and they've had
for 6 years they allegedly patented, quote unquote.
They've obviously talked to the players about it. Management have talked about it, so they've already got this name. I think they were probably really strong on Yeti. Maybe they back out of it now. I really hope they don't, but as I said, there's an opportunity there. So
100%. Now, we're going to get to one more thing before I get to a bit of a rant, and I want to get your comments.
Can't wait.
But it sounds like the NHL has canceled the escrow payments, also according to Elliot Friedman, which I'm sure the players all love because they're not paying as much percentage into it due to the pandemic. As we all recall, the game was a little bit paused and it couldn't do a lot. And so, they've paid it off, which was kind of the plan. And now the cap, although allegedly it's being rumored, kind of like, everyone knows rumor that it's about 92 to 93 million next season. It's possible it could jump up even up to 98 million. So like a huge $10 million jump, which would be great for the team because you have players like Mikko Rantanen who are at an impasse with the Colorado Avalanche. And of course, Mitch Marner out in Toronto. I wanted to get your thoughts on, is this good for the NHL in terms of the fact that they are in a healthy place with their revenue and business? And B, do those 2 guys sign with their respective teams or do they move on?
It's fantastic. I think the players will probably sign. I think you have, in your case, maybe generational talent, maybe not. Maybe it's just a guy that it's like, he's been really good to us. We want to hold on to him. We want to keep him. Points mean a lot, right? So you keep guys. Goals are everything in the league, right? So you maybe hold on to those guys. As far as the cap for some teams, I don't think it helps you too much. Those teams that are on the floor, it kind of sucks for them. But like every one of these teams, every single team in the NHL is signing these guys to like $9 million deals or $7 million deals. And you're kind of wondering, well, they've only had a couple good years in the league. But if the cap keeps on going up, it's great. And there's so much talk over the years, like NHL players are underpaid all over again. And compared to NBA players and MLB players and the list, and NFL players, the list goes on. North American sports, like they're one of the lowest, right? So the only way to get that is bring that cap up, and then players will get paid what people feel like they should be getting paid, right?
100%. I think it's been behind the times, and I think sometimes the NHL shoots itself in its own foot in terms of promotions and marketing, and in terms of getting the game abroad, because it's best game, but one of the more questionable run sports franchises or sports organizations things in the world. So it's definitely be interesting to see what happens, but I think it'll be fun for fans because it'll be interesting. What do these guys get? Now, does Mikko Rantanen sign with Colorado, and does Mitch Marner stay? Because those are those two big names, especially after Draisaitl signed his big contract starting up next year for $14 million.
Rantanen is going to be humongous money, Draisaitl money, in my opinion. Yeah, I do think you keep him. You have your three-headed monster in Colorado. You're keeping him. You're doing whatever you can to keep him. Okay. Marner, your local guy, you drafted, you developed him. I think that's really hard to trade him. Yes, they have a lot of money in other places, but as I say, you have that guy, you need to keep him. So
it'll be interesting to see, and we're looking forward to the trade deadline along with the July 1st deadline when all the free agent side. Free agent frenzy is always fun. Usually falls on a Canada Day, and it's always fun just to be on your phone and just staring down looking at all the trades. Now, we're going to get to Rant of the Night.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
Calling all hockey fans, stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
All right. Well, we love Puckpedia, and we do a lot of great work with them, so we appreciate their sponsorship. But what I wanted to rant about, Evan, see, this is how confusing I am. You're just thinking the whole time, Jordan.
I haven't talked about U.S. players yet.
I haven't mentioned anything yet. Is my issue with the Four Nations. I think it's useless. I think it's pointless. I think it's a waste of time. It's not even about McDavid, as I've heard a few rumblings saying that he should boycott it. I just think it's pointless. What is it bringing? And I had been looking up, and I showed you this in the group chat that we were in. The tickets are going for $200+ in the Upper Bowl in Montreal. I can't speak for Boston. I didn't look, and that's American prices. And I wondered to myself, why would I want to pay that much money for tickets? And there's no meaning. Plus, you don't have some of the best players in the tournament. Where's David Pastrnak? Where's Leon Draisaitl captaining Team Germany? Where's Alex Ovechkin, who's about to break Wayne Gretzky's goal record, and he's not even in it. And I saw some predictions of if you can make your own Team Russia. It looks stacked. I can't get behind it. I don't know what it is. It's pretty much a poor man's all-star game. If you want the best on best and you want to compete for something meaningful, it's called the Olympics. Get the boys back into the Olympics, because I don't know why we haven't had McDavid and Crosby and now Bedard together at the Olympics. Even McKinnon, throw him in there, right? And I think it's silly. Now, I'm sure these guys are playing for pride. I'm sure these guys are very honored to play. But some of them, like I believe it's Sam Bennett, has really struggled to score this year. And then you have someone like Zach Hyman, who's come up and really teared it apart ever since not being announced. Now, goaltenders, again, Evan and I talked about it in a previous episode. You can maybe talk about your thoughts on the general overview of the roster. But I can't get excited for this tournament, and I don't know why this is, but it seems kind of silly. And now I'm hearing also tickets aren't even selling out, and it's been hard. So beyond price, it's hard to promote this. So what does the NHL do? Maybe not do this tournament, okay? That's my thoughts. Any thoughts on the Four Nations, Jordan?
Yeah, totally agree. It's not the roster I would have put together. I think that a lot of the players they put on are kind of so-so on their teams. You missed a huge opportunity with bringing in young players to the team, the Celebranis or the Bedards that are playing well. They don't have to play in your lineup. They can just be scratched. It's okay. It's the fact that they're practicing.
From San Jose to play for Team Sweden. The kid is having a very good season.
it's just to have them with those guys that have won cups, those guys that have won gold medals. They've been there, they've done that, to have them together. And as far as the 4 teams, it's like, it's so ridiculous. And it's not just like, okay, you could have a couple other countries there. Like, I do hear rumblings of 25, 26 are going to have Russia back in the IIHF. So if that is true, that would be fantastic. I personally want to see it. Leave the politics out of hockey, bring them back. People want to see Canada versus Russia, US versus Russia, Sweden, even though they can't get through the round robins normally against Russia, like, people want to see it. So you miss there 100%. And yeah, as for the US team, absolutely stacked, almost not even fair. Yeah. Canada's goaltending. You could probably name 3 goalies right now that are just better than all the goalies on the team. Like, Logan Thompson, are you kidding me? Yeah, like, he's one of the best goalies in the league this season. He's on one of the best teams, if they're the best team out east, and he's not even on the roster. Like, what are you doing?
It's called Doug Armstrong. His guy, Jordan Bennington. That's who's on the team.
You have one team's goalie that's in a playoff position. The other 2 goalies aren't even on a playoff team. Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, I could go on and rant forever about it, but that's just my thought on it.
I agree. That's pretty much what I thought. I don't want to get into it too much. I'm sure I'll keep an eye on the highlights, but you guys can let us know if you're excited, and not to just discourage you from not watching. It seems kind of meh. Like, it's not the best on best. It's the partial best on best because you have so many other players that are missing. I mean, people were talking about how you can make a second Team Canada. Okay, then do that. Think of how wild it would be that Team Canada 1 has this and Team Canada 2 now. These guys are going to play with pride. But my worry is also, what if Ekholm for Oilers gets injured playing for Team Sweden, blocking a shot by McDavid or Crosby? What then? What did the Oilers do, right? Like, couldn't this tournament have been done in the summer, giving these players an opportunity to kind of play if they wanted to, sign up? But I don't know. I think the NHL is pandering. I don't think they're doing well. Tickets shouldn't be as expensive as they are. Like, I'm sorry, like $220 for upper bowl for this. I get it, but if you want to promote the game and get kids into it, and it's Montreal, it's a beautiful city. Boston, I'm sure, is wonderful at this time of year, but I don't know what it is. And again, you only have 1 game per night.
They're treating it like it's a Super Bowl, but in all realism, it's an all-star game. Like, it doesn't mean anything, but they're treating it like it means everything. So that's,
But they're just not promoting it. So that's pretty much it on that, mate. That is my rant of the night.
Puckpedia brings you
Rant of the Night.
Calling all hockey fans, stay on top of your game with Puckpedia. It's the ultimate source for NHL salary cap information.
Excellent. Now, before we get to a few other things, just want to get on topic that I had written down. Is there anything you wanted to kind of discuss, Jordan, about the current NHL so far in the season? Any storylines that you've been watching? Any surprises, given where we are now with the playoff picture?
I feel like this kind of happens every season. You get to the midway point and there's like, what was this ref thinking in this game, and the crazy calls, and it's all over the place. It's not just the Oilers and the Canucks. It's every team in the league, and you see it almost every night. There's something that happens. Sometimes it's the smallest thing. Like, there's a Columbus-Toronto game, and you got 2 of the biggest tough guys in the game fighting, and like, people want to see that. It's great, yeah. And there's so much talk. Remember, over the last couple of years, fighting's out of the game. No, it's not. It is alive and it is well. So seeing that is great.
Yeah, and I think BX had talked about the incident with Edmonton and Vancouver. He's like, this is the reason why fighting will never, cease to exist in hockey. You got to make a statement. So I like the fight between Matthew Olivier, who's a one tough customer, and Ryan Reeves, who can throw down. I believe also a couple days ago, the Rangers faced off versus the Canadians, and the Rempe faced off with Arbor Jacki, Mr. Wi-Fi himself. That was quite a tilt. if you guys ever get a chance, and I know Jordan's a big fan of UFC. See, I'm making the mistake all that. This is the problem with doing this show with Evan for so long.
That and wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I do smell what The Rock is cooking, and Stone Cold Austin is one of the best. But if you guys watch, there's this great video online of UFC fighters, so pro fighters who do this for a living, get in the octagon. They beat the bejesus out of each other. They rate hockey fights, and the expression and the responses are phenomenal. You guys should go check it out. We'll try to post it on our Facebook page. I don't know if you've seen it, Jordan. It's phenomenal. They throw they're like, oh, they threw a right hook. Oh, that's impressive. And they're like, I'm on skates. So I like the fighting, and it's done in a very professional manner. There is a code to it. So I do like that, but I agree. Fighting is not gone, and I like it.
Yep. You have your goons in hockey, and people are just like, oh, that guy he's just here to like cause chaos and fight. And it's no different in the UFC. You have your martial artists that it means everything to them. It's a way of life. And then you have your goons, the guys that are just like, I'm just here for a paycheck and want to get, and that's it, like want to punch some head in, and that's it.
Now, I'm going to bring some news from around the rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
The Kalkaska Battlers bring another episode of Around the Rink. Now, it's not good news either, but I did want to talk about how longtime NHL linesman Danny McCord has passed away. He was 70 years of age, 70 years young. He officiated over 1,600 NHL games and served almost 2 decades in scouting and development with the league's officiating department. Our thoughts are with him. It's never easy. It's tough to lose someone in the hockey community, but we wish the family all their best to make sure that they're doing good in this difficult time. Is there anything, Mr. Jordan, that you wanted to talk about around the rink? I know today I got a chance to go out to skate a little bit in the outdoor rink. It was really fun. I had a blast. But anything you want to kind of talk about hockey-wise in your world?
Yeah, here in Edmonton, I mean, it's been really cold. It's freezing cold over the weekend. It's starting to warm up a little bit. So get yourself out there, play some ODR with the boys, and, go for a rip.
100%. Awesome. Well, that has been Around the Rink.
If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the Rink
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right, guys, we're going to be wrapping up here. It is more of a shorter show tonight. That's okay. It happens. Some of us are tired. And Jordan, he's already been a champ by coming on and sharing so much. But is there any final thoughts, Jordan, that you wanted to share about your whole overall impression about the NHL? Any player that is standout? Or to really screw it to Evan, any prospect that you believe that he needs to keep an eye on because he clearly has his eyes shut when he's watching the WHL?
Once we get closer to the draft, I'll give a list, and Evan's going to be shook that all these WHL product they're coming down the pipeline. And you look at it year after year, whether they're in, like, even Celebrini wasn't in the WHL, but he's from Vancouver. Then you got Landy DuPont in a couple years. It's just going to be the next Cale Makar, if not better. Bobby Orr, who knows? Just shove it in his face a little bit more. He'll stop talking about these USHL players or these NCAA guys. It's like, great, they're doing really well, don't get me wrong. But you can't throw shade on the CHL. Like, the CHL is always given these generational talent players. And I mean, if you go back 30 years, you go back to even right now, it's like still the best players come from the CHL. So whether it's like, oh, well, there's so many guys coming out of the NCAA, that's great and everything, but you're still getting the best players out of the CHL. So shove it, Evan.
I'm sure he will. We'll probably have to talk about it next week. Now, I did want to finish off with 2 quick thoughts, and then we'll wrap up the show for tonight. I wanted to know your thoughts on and I know it's been a bit, the World Juniors and just kind of the experience, what you thought of the whole tournament and what Team Canada kind of did, and the dominance of USA winning back-to-back gold.
Yeah, I thought US was fantastic. They built an amazing team, amazing coach. Like, I see Carl in the league in no time. You could see he was a bit fiery, which you don't always see with the World Junior coaches, just because you have to be careful how you are on the bench with that young of a team. You don't want to show your emotions too much. He did, and they won. So maybe you need that from your coach, because I thought for the most part, if you're Canada, Dave Cameron hit it. So maybe he should have been a little bit more emotional with his team, and maybe you would have got a better result.
Kind of took me the wrong way. That was a rant of my own, but I mean, it is what it is. You know, there's always room for improvement, and you have now a full year to work on that. You have players like you just indicated, Landon DuPoint, Gavin McKenna, who's got another year under him now. He's going to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more stronger. You know, Hockey IQ is going to continue to grow. He's going to be a little bit more detailed. So excellent. Now, we talked about Edmonton and Vancouver, and we do have a lot of fans from across the country here. So I wanted to get your quick thoughts on Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, and we talked a little bit about Montreal, but we'll finish off with Montreal. But your thoughts on Calgary's season so far this year?
I think Calgary's impressed Calgarians. I think around the league, people are really surprised by them, that people are starting to see a little bit more of their flaws. So you see it around like most games. They're either getting outshot or just outplayed. But they're holding in there. They're having some close games. They've had a goalie that's been phenomenal. Like Dustin Wolf is just standing on his head.
Could he win the Calder? Could he be a Calder nominee?
Yeah, I think he's in the mix. I think there's about 4 guys, but he's one of them. I think it's really tough to win it as a goalie, and I think if you got Michkov and you got Celebrini putting up points, like say they get like 60 or 70 points, it's really hard to deny those guys. It depends on if he can get them into the playoffs. I think that helps his case. It's not how they do in the playoffs, then it's like he got them there, like he's been their guy. There hasn't been a point in the season where they haven't had faith in him, and that's huge for a starting goalie.
100%. And Winnipeg, sorry, go ahead.
Winnipeg, I think, like, people are surprised by them, but we really shouldn't be surprised. Like, they've had the best goalie in the league for years. Like Hellebuck consistently is, like, he won the Vezina last year. Like, he's consistently one of the best. Yeah, like he's pretty much got it locked down, and barring an injury or something, I have no idea how he could lose it at this point.
I know. There's been interest in Jonathan Toews potentially returning, but do they keep someone like Ehlers, or is he gone at the trade deadline?
Yeah, Toews could go there. I don't think it's the top of his list. I think like a Vegas or an LA probably is near the top of his list. He'll probably go somewhere hot. A place that's a consistent playoff team. Winnipeg is not a consistent playoff team. So as great as they're doing right now, it's a wait and see. Like, okay, what are they going to do this year? Because Hellebuck's numbers in the playoffs are terrible. Regular season, fantastic. You still do have that scoring depth. Like Kyle Connor is on a mission this year. Like he's been one of the best players in the NHL. Scheifele is such a surprise. He's one of the top goal scorers in the league. Especially when he got that money, he got like $7 million, right? Or is it $9 million?
Yeah. No, it's same contract as Hellebuck. It's like 7.
Yeah, like people are like, wow, huge overpay. And honestly, he's worth way more than that. I think right-handed center too. Like, I mean, what else do you want? The problem with Winnipeg is in a couple years, you're going to have cap problems because you're going to have to keep all these guys. You have Kyle Connor coming up, and you have Nick Ehlers. So it's going to be really tough. You did get good contracts with Scheifele and Hellebuck, but you can only spend so much money. So thankfully for them, with that $9 million towards the cap, they got a bit more spending, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tight.
All right. And Ottawa Senators, who are now in the first wild card position, I believe, so far. The last time it could have changed since 5 years ago that they've been in that position, even with their starting goaltender, Linus Ullmark, being injured and still recovering.
Ottawa, I'll say it's about time. I mean, I've been to the arena. We've been to the arena. It's tough for the fan base to get fully into it because it is in another town. But the team is like even when we were there a couple of years ago, they have the players, they have the personnel to do it. I think they've done a really good job in going out and getting a goalie. Nick Jensen's been solid for them as well. And then you've just had these guys just age a little bit. Like your young guys are just kind of, they're developing and they're only going to get better. They have some pieces on the way as well. So it's nice to see, to be honest. And it's nice to see this flip of teams like Pittsburgh that's in the playoffs every year. And now they're starting to fade a little bit more and more every year. And you got Ottawa and Detroit and teams like that coming up. So.
And what did you think? I don't know if you got a chance to see Brady Tkachuk getting into it with Igor Shesterkin. I know that he's not had a point in a little bit, but he kind of fell over a little bit, bumped Shesterkin in the head, and Shesterkin went after him. But I know he gets people going. He's a fighter. He's a battler. But your thoughts on that play?
Yeah, honestly, I love it. I know, like, his type of game, if you're not putting up points, what are you doing? Yeah. And either he's had maybe Walt telling him that, big old Walt, or he's had someone else in the locker room being like, hey, like, you're a big body, get to the net. Go and, like, slam into someone, like, do other things, because you can do other things. Not every guy can do that. So it's good to see that he's trying to find some other way. And, like, once it's going for you, he'll start putting up points that they'll bounce it off of him, like, he'll figure it out. He's a good player. So
awesome. Toronto Maple Leafs, what do they do?
Toronto, I think they started off so strong, and now they've kind of hit a little bit of a dip. I think they have to be really careful what they do on the deadline. I think you need to bring in pieces.
Is it a center? Is it a third-line center, or is it a defenseman partner for Morgan Riley?
Yeah, I think that
they pay him for. They got Tanev, but I know Tanev's been playing with McCabe, and it's one of their best shutdown pairs. Yeah,
I think they're going to try and target like a Matthias Michelli type player, like a guy that can kind of play two ways in the ice, but has got speed. I think they want a guy that's kind of in your middle. As far as their defense, yeah, you can add for sure. They'll probably make a move just like the Oilers. I've heard Tony DeAngelo's name out there that he's done in the KHL.
He's done.
Yeah, he was like 32 points in 34 KHL games. Fantastic numbers. Obviously, you're taking a risk with him, but if you look at best available and you get this guy for free, it's kind of like the Klingberg thing in Edmonton. I think you just go for it. You don't really have much to lose. He doesn't have a great playoff track history, but if you can add a little bit more scoring punch from the back end, or a guy that can skate or just move the puck out of the zone, who knows what it'll do for Toronto. Maybe it'll push them ahead and they'll become that cup contending team.
I think they need to get a home ice advantage for one, finish first in the division, and it's possible that they don't have to face Boston given the struggle. But that being said, even if they go up, we could be facing a Toronto, Montreal, or Ottawa. But Montreal now is potentially on track to make the playoffs. What do you make of that rebuild there with John Hughes and Martin St. Louis, who literally in November, people were calling for his head to be fired, and everyone going hard. Patrick Laine playing healthy and really bolstering that power play too. What do you make the Montreal Canadiens and what they've been able to do?
Evan's going to love this one. So my bold prediction for Montreal is they're going to win a cup eventually. Not this year, not the next year, maybe not even the year after. But this team is so loaded with prospects. This team looks pretty good right now. And they're loaded everywhere. Like they have all these great, like they had Lane Hudson, like fantastic in the World Juniors last. Yeah, like fantastic. And he's only going to get better. He's like another Quinn Hughes out there. You have all these.
Evan Bouchard. He could be an Evan Bouchard type player. You
have arguably the best player outside of the NHL with Demidov, who's fantastic in the KHL right now. If he's anything even like Michkov, people are saying he's maybe better. Like this team is scary. They're big. They can play hard. They can play fast. Their coach is fantastic. I think they have all the pieces. Right now, I think they just need to worry on just steering the ship. So just playing the right way. And they have the coach to do it, but just continuously, he needs to hammer all those things into those young players. Like, this is how to be a pro, and this is what we need to do night in and night out. And once they get there in the 2 to 3 years from now, I think this team is going to be a Stanley Cup contender and they're going to win it.
I agree. I think they have a lot of potentials, especially goaltending. They've really knocked it about. Now, I just want to say I appreciate all these people tuning in immediately. We are just raising in the numbers here. We're up to quite a few. We're at 74 now watching. It's insane.
I guess Evan just needs me on the show more is what it is.
I was going to say that maybe they thought that you Evan de-aged and got younger and more attractive, and that's why they're like, "What's his secret? How did this work?"
Evan's got hair again.
It's coming back.
Not a lot, though.
But we're going to finish up here. I know I said we were done, but we had so much to talk about. There's always so much to talk about with hockey. We can talk hockey nonstop.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts you have about anything, Jordan, about the NHL, about anything hockey related?
I'm just really excited to see how the Four Nations goes with everything we've said. Excited to see actually in the next week or two to see what other teams do around the league, because I think there's going to be a lot more early trades, or like the JT Miller situation maybe gets taken care of in the next 2 weeks. Just early trades that you really see what teams are doing and who's going all in. And then you see that rush of, okay, we're desperate. We need to make things happen. First round picks get thrown all over the place. And fans love that. Like, I personally love that. I used to love that even when my team wasn't doing well. I used to like look around the league and see who's doing what, right? It's exciting.
I agree. Well, it's been a blast having you on the show. For those of you that are just tuning in or starting to tune in, no, this is not Evan. This is a better, smarter, more insightful, knowledgeable guy that knows his way around the WHL. Jordan Valls, he's tuning in to fill in for Evan while Evan's taking a night off. He's got some things going on. So we appreciate you, Jordan, coming in, filling in, sharing your knowledge. You know quite a bit. We're not going to say how, but you do know. If we need anything Latvian based, we have a friend who's very connected that way.
Or Slovakian. Really any of those countries, you know?
Yeah, he's really dialed in, and we won't say if he's a mascot for one of the teams or not, but that's just something to keep an eye on. So, Jordan, this is a social media platform. Is there anywhere you want people to follow you on social media?
Yeah, if you guys want to give me a follow, Jade is Darrow right on the screen there at Instagram. I post a lot of different things. I'll post some hockey. I don't go crazy with it. Stuff that I feel like it's going to like fire people up, I'll definitely post it. I like funny videos, and I'll post a lot of Star Wars. So if you're a huge nerd, it's great. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
You're a man of many tastes and a man of great tastes. So that's wonderful to have. So
Thank
you
you
again for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Remember to give us a like. We are here every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We will be back next week. We are lining up some more guests. Jordan, we're hoping to have you back before the playoffs, I think, again, just because it's an exciting time. It's the best time of the year for me, playoffs. You never know what's going to happen. So many storylines, who's facing off with who. Like we talked about earlier,
absolutely.
New teams that could be coming off. And then we post all the time on our website, Two Guys and Hockey Talk. We got articles up. I got one up this morning. All our previous guests. We're going to get Jordan up there as well. I think he's in the background somewhere, but we got him up there. We just need a good quality photo. We'll make sure to say not Evan in that bracket.
I'll try to not send you any nude photos then.
That's the way to do it. But it's been a ring-a-ding-ding dandy, as Evan likes to say. So thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Have a good night. In the meantime and in between time, as we always say, Jordan, do you know?
Keep your stick on the ice.
Keep your stick on the ice. You got it. It's okay. It's like I'm back with Evan again. He makes all these mistakes.
Yeah, right?
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, usually.
Cheers.
Take care, guys. Thank you.